Okay, how old is the patient?
47. So we have a military jet crash. I'm the pilot. We need to get rescue rolling. I'm not sure where the airplane is. It would have crash landed somewhere. I ejected.
That was the F-35 pilot who bailed out on 17 September 2023, low to the ground over Charleston.
Chris Lehto, welcome to Lehto Files.
Welcome to the channel. I'm Chris Lehto. I flew F-16s for 18 years and was actually a crash safety investigator. Investigated one Class A mishap. Unfortunately, the pilot died in that one. Good news in this story is that no one died. There was no fatalities. The pilot hurt his back, which is normal, actually, unfortunately, following an ejection. In an ejection, I have friends who ejected in there. Their backs are still messed up. So in this video, we'll go through the crash, go through recent updates, give my initial impressions, kind of a different video. This isn't a UAP related video, but I've got a lot of requests for F-35s and it's an interesting case. So I will cover it here. Thanks for being here. Please smash the like button, subscribe, and then share the video if you do like it. That really helps. You can get early access. I've already released initial F-35 inputs on my YouTube members channel or at patreon.com/Chris Lehto. You can get early access, ad-free, and behind the scenes stuff. Let's get to the video.
Saw that between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this?
That scream would be shared on TMZ.
That was Randolph White. He was in his bathroom shaving when he heard a crazy jet sound coming overhead. These jets make some crazy sounds, and this is where the actual pilot ejected over Charleston, and then it flew, the jet unmanned, almost 80 miles up into this rural area where you saw Randolph White. That's where his house is. And F-35 flew manless, pilotless overhead. So the Marine Corps has taken some flack because they haven't released a lot of information. We still don't really know what kind of mission it was. This was on a Sunday. Most missions happen during the week. I was in the Air Force. I wasn't in the Marines, so I don't know how often they fly on Sunday. This is it right here, Marine Corps Station Beaufort. So F-35s are really, from what I can tell, is they're standing up this squadron, actually. So Marine Corps activates a second F-35B fleet replacement squadron. The F-35B, that is the James Bond model. If I was an evil genius and I had to choose any weapon system, it would be the F-35B. I mean, that thing is amazing. It can take off and land vertically. So from anywhere, you don't need a long runway to use this thing. And it's a stealth F-35 jet. Man, the F-35 is a beast. It has issues with brand new technology, as well as the Osprey. That had a lot of issues and crashes. And they've had a crash recently. They're still having issues with the V-22. So Marine Fighter Attack Training Squadron 502 was activated on June 26 at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort, South Carolina, and eventually will help carry the load of F-35B training as the Marines increase the number of F-35Bs in the Corps. Beaufort also is the location of the first F-35B replacement training squadron, VMFAT F-501. Okay, and these are the leaders. And if you look here at their ages, okay, so 2007 is when he graduated, 2006. So the pilot's 47. I'm not here to try and out who this guy is, but it's not one of these guys. Because if you look here, they're May 2007 is when they commissioned, December 2006. They don't look older than me. Maybe this guy, he is older, but not this guy. This guy does look old enough. These guys do not. So I think it's not one of these guys. It's actually a senior pilot. It's going to be one of your leaders, probably colonel and above. Colonel or brigadier general is going to be the rank on this guy. I don't know about how much time he has in F-35, but chances are this guy knew what he was doing. And you can hear him on the radio call here. He sounds cool and collected. So their base is down here in Beaufort, but he basically ejects here. Sounds like, my guess is in the weather, in bad weather. And then the jet ends up flying 80 miles to the north up to this area. There's two planes. We still don't know what kind of mission they're on, but it sounds like they're in the weather. The wingman, he was able to actually come back and land safely. The F-35s have normally a ton of gas. You're not going to want to punch out unless you really, really have to. It's a very violent engagement. So he punches out. It sounded like they said a neighborhood in the north part. I actually tried to find the address, couldn't find it, but it's in a north neighborhood here, 6938 South Cohen track that, and let's listen to the audio now.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
I guess we got a pilot at our house, and he says he got ejected. So he ejected from the plane. So we just see if we could get some ambulance, please.
I'm sorry, what happened?
We got a pilot in the house, and I guess he landed in my backyard, and we were trying to see if we could get a ambulance to the house, please.
Also in the background, he's talking. You can hear him in the background. He's talking back to his base, telling them, yeah, I'm okay. He says, I landed in a backyard. No, I didn't hit the house. So
I just wasn't there. Okay, I'm in a house. I landed in a neighborhood. I don't know what happened. Everything failed.
Okay, are you with the patient now?
Yes.
Okay, how old is the patient?
47. So we had a military jet crash. I'm the pilot. We need to get rescue rolling. I'm not sure where the airplane is. It would have crash landed somewhere. I ejected.
Okay, how far did he fall?
I was at 2,000 feet.
Okay, and what caused the fall?
An aircraft failure.
Okay. Okay, is there any serious bleeding?
I don't know. I can't see myself.
wow, interesting. So what we're looking at right here is this is the actual impact. So they found the impact. There was a lot of issue in the news, right? Why did it take so long for them to find it? It actually is not that easy to find a jet aircraft crash, especially a fighter. If it falls into a rural area, it can be very difficult. This is the actual impact zone. This impact here makes me think the plane impacted sideways. Okay, I believe 90 degrees of bank. What you notice is the trees aren't cut down here. So it seems like it impacted at a high angle. Seems like relatively high angle. Didn't land in a flat and impacted. And then this is where all your debris field is. Okay, people are like, where's the debris field? And I was like, this is the debris field. If you see these little pieces, here's a better view of the debris field. You can see all these little tiny pieces. Okay, that is the pieces of the jet. That's it. That's why nobody really survives airplane crashes. This is what happens. I've also heard it was dry there. It doesn't look that dry in this area, but why didn't it cause fire? You know, so they're postulating or speculating that the jet wasn't full of gas, so it didn't have that much fuel in it. F-35s have a ton of internal gas. I think almost 18,000 pounds of fuel internal. That's 3 times the F-16. That is a lot of fuel. But again, it doesn't look that dry here. I don't know. Would it have caught fire? Maybe not. Or the fire just burns out. It was 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The issue is, though, it sounds like weather was a factor. It sounds like there was terrible weather. They had a severe warning. Someone mentioned what could sounded like a tornado. Could have been like a tornado. So speculation is that this jet had some sort of weather issue, and I'm going to speculate that it was lightning. As far as finding a jet, it's not so easy to find an impact like this. Yeah, it looks terrible, looks like a lot of mayhem, etc. But this is probably in a large forest, if you imagine. And this is just one clearing. You know, you're going to see trees. You have to see it really basically from the air. And so it may be difficult to find this among a bunch of trees. Quite difficult. Okay, can I have my own story about difficulty finding a crash? This is a sad story. This pilot died. F-22 pilot died. And this is a story from February 13, 2013. The family of a dead F-22 Raptor pilot said they have been vindicated by a damning Pentagon report that says the Air Force did not have the evidence to blame the pilot for the crash that took his life. I was actually an F-16 pilot as an aggressor on this mission that fateful night, unfortunately. We were fighting against these guys, training these F-22 pilots. I was working the desk while I had another 4-ship airborne of F-16s being the Red Air as aggressor pilots. The mission seemed to go fine. On the way back, I got a phone call, random phone call from Elmendorf asking, hey, do you know what happened to this F-22? Did it happen to land there? I know this is a crazy question. And I said, no, unfortunately. I mean, nobody wants to hear that sort of question. The pilot did not come back. The plane did not land, and they couldn't find it. They had last known transponder indications, but that doesn't give a very accurate location. And this F-22 went straight down. Basically, he was poisoned by the oxygen system. It was a malfunction in the actual oxygen system. This is what they determined finally. finally, when they came around and found the actual truth, is that it was poisoning him, and the jet was not allowing him to breathe, actually suffocating him, poisoning him essentially, and that's why he ended up crashing straight into the ground. It took, I think, 10 days to actually find the crash site. If you can imagine, just a hole about the size of an F-22 going straight into the ground. So it took a long time to find. It does take time to find these things. And the transponder that works really well, or should work really well, it has malfunctioned as well in the past, is the actual ejection seat transponder, because we want to find the pilot. Normally the plane explodes and blows up. You don't have to worry about it. But there is some issue with the F-35 and our secret systems. In our jets, we have what's called ComSec. It's very high, top secret, secured information about our communications, the codes to our communications, and other top secret information. When a pilot punches out, ejects, that is zeroized. It's called zeroized. In the F-16, we have a little button. You can zeroize the jet. When you eject, it will automatically zero all the important top secret codes. It's the automatic thing. What was reported in the news is that this is what happened. The pilot ejected and the transponder was zeroized essentially, because it's not written into the code that you need to determine where a jet is with a transponder after the pilot ejects. Normally they don't fly on their own for 80 miles. Okay, 80 miles. How can it do that? Well, advanced jets such as the F-16, F-35 especially, have autopilot. So when the pilot actually ejected, it's not an autopilot where it's actually going to go and land you somewhere, but it will keep the jet going straight and level, is what they say, keeping the same attitude at 1G. So if he punched out, now the jet is just going to get to 1G and then just fly straight. Can't imagine. And then what would cause it to crash? Quite interesting, but we will know, right? They do have the crash site and they will get the black box information. So we will find out in about a month. There's supposed to be a month where you get a accident investigation board result. So we should get some sort of information out of this within a month. And the accident investigation board could be longer than that. But we'll see what happens. In 2010, the Air Force blamed by clear and convincing evidence that Haney basically crashed. And what's so ridiculous is what they say. Yeah, this is it. The jets, which have yet to be sent on a combat mission for years, were plagued with a mysterious oxygen-related problem in which on rare occasions its pilots will report experiencing symptoms of oxygen deprivation in mid-flight. That was pretty controversial. Jeremy Gordon, my squadron commander at the Air Force Academy, he was actually on 60 Minutes talking about this, and it did kill pilots. And the Air Force said it was the pilot's fault, which is just ridiculous. And they found out later that, oh, surprise, it wasn't the pilot's fault. And I think we'll find out here that most likely it is not the pilot's fault. Okay, no one wants to eject below 2,000 feet. Sounds like he was below 2,000 feet when he actually ejected based on other reporting.
We had a military jet crash. I'm the pilot. We need to get rescue rolling. I'm not sure where the airplane is. It would have crash landed somewhere. I ejected.
Okay, how far did he fall?
I was at 2,000 feet.
Okay, and what caused the fall?
An aircraft failure.
Okay. Okay, is there any serious bleeding?
I don't know. I can't see myself.
No, you look fine.
Okay.
You just couple scratches.
What did
From
the
what
other
I can
person
see.
say?
I feel okay. My back just hurts.
Okay.
Has there been a report of an airplane crash?
I have not seen any come up yet. Okay, what part of the body was injured?
Ma'am, I'm a pilot in a military aircraft, and I ejected. So I just rode a parachute down to the ground. Can you please send an ambulance?
Yes, sir. I've already told you they're on their way. I'm just required to ask these questions while they're en route.
That's a funny exchange, right? He's wearing all this equipment, all this gear. I mean, he just went through this extremely violent event. You know, he probably would know if he was seriously bleeding. The guy's like, yeah, you look fine. And that's a serious issue. Like I mentioned before, herniated discs, my buddy has, you have heavy G's up to, I don't know, 40 G's I've seen. It is a lot of accelerations. You don't want to do it. When I talk to people that have ejected, I said, how was it? He said it was better than dying. You can see he was kind of frustrated there. Ma'am, I'm a pilot in a military aircraft and I ejected. I just rode a parachute down to the ground. You can hear kind of the delay. Can you please send an ambulance? The Marines have described the pilot as an experienced aviator with decades of experience in the cockpit. Yeah, I would agree with that. This is from the Daily Mail. Okay, the unmanned pilot took it off on Sunday from Joint Base Charleston, South Carolina, but an unexplained issue forced him to eject. So this is interesting. It says the unnamed pilot had taken off on Sunday from Joint Base Charleston. Okay, but are they based out of Beaufort or are they in Joint Base Charleston? I tend to think that they were just doing like a landing there or a diversionary landing, emergency landing in that case. Maybe had some issue and then had to try to emergency divert and then something happened. The plane was in tandem with another jet, which returned to base after the mishap rather than following the pilotless aircraft. So the unnamed pilot had taken off on Sunday from Joint Base Charleston, which is interesting. But the F-35 itself is from Beaufort. It's from that other base. So his wingman ended up landing back at Joint Base Charleston. So it was landable there. It sounds like they were going there for a reason. So for some issue, and then the wingman, why didn't he fly all the way back to Beaufort? So it sounds like they were both trying to land there. Maybe bad weather, diverting, and he had some issue on final and did not have the fuel, or more likely the plane just wasn't reacting. The plane sounds like had serious electrical malfunction. The other guy landed without any issues. He'd also been on the training mission. They also mentioned that they lost sight of the plane on his way down due to the weather. So there must have been weather. Obviously, there was bad weather there. He couldn't see it. Look at this. He's here, ejects here, and then goes all the way up there. So that's the basic update. Pretty interesting. Very experienced pilot from Beaufort. Looks like 2 aircraft. I don't know what they're doing. Some sort of training down in Charleston here. And sounds like they had to land there for some reason. Normally you're going to divert. You want to land back in Beaufort. But for some reason they are landing into bad weather. Sounds like crappy weather into Charleston. So they're put into a bad situation. Sounds like they had to divert for some reason, some issue maybe with his jet. So he had to land, try and get it on the deck, and then hit weather and was unable to land the jet safely. So had to eject in bad situation. Saw another reporting that said he was at 1,000 feet when he actually ejected. He said 2,000. Why do you say 2,000? Because that is your controlled ejection altitude. Okay. If you're out of control, 6,000 feet above ground level, you have to get out or you are at fault. It's actually pilot fault. If the pilot dies and the plane is out of control below 6,000 feet, it's the pilot's fault. Controlled ejection is 2,000 feet. So you should be 2,000 feet above ground level. If the jet is under control to eject, that means you will safely land. But in this case, sounds like he was at 1,000 feet. Of course, you want to eject at 2,000 feet controlled, but does that happen in real life? Probably not. And like you saw, he did land safely even at 1,000 feet. These seats you can actually eject 0-0 seat we had in the Viper, and this is the next upgrade. So should be able to eject right at sea level, just sitting there safely. It'll hurt, right? It'll be really violent and it will hurt. Probably hurt something. As we hear, it hurt his back. But in this case, very interesting case. And then the F-35 flew for another many miles. So 80 miles, if it's going 300 knots, that's around 8 miles a minute. So it flew almost 10 minutes. 10 minutes of this jet flying. That's pretty fast, actually. Probably was going slower than that. So it could have flown even longer. You're talking over 10 minutes. Yeah, so by the end of that call, that plane probably hadn't even hit or was just hitting as he's hanging up after an 8-minute phone call flying overhead. So one story I will relay was from a buddy at Phoenix who was requaling in the F-16, practicing landing. So touch and goes landing, where you land and high speed you take off. Landing and takeoff in particular is the most dangerous part because it's the heaviest normally, has the most weight. And so it's the hardest to stop. If you have any issues when you're taking off, you have many less options. So in this case, the front pilot did what the checklist says immediately to do if you have loss of thrust in a takeoff engagement. The front pilot immediately zoomed the jet up and then ejected them, okay? What happened, similar to this situation, is the jet continued to fly. So my buddy and the front pilot land. basically like this guy did after a violent ejection. But the plane kept flying, and the plane flew, turned, came back around full 360 and flew over their head. He said he watched it as it flew over his head, just like, oh no. And but luckily, again, crashed out on the base in front of them. You know, an unmanned plane flying over your head and then crashed. Huge explosion, he said. And in that instance, the checklist, that's what the checklist says. You are supposed to zoom, stores, jet, eject. In that instance, you're lost of thrust, you're in a dangerous situation. But my buddy is an experienced pilot. He's been there many years, and that plane obviously could have flown longer. So in that instance, you know, would he have maybe waited to eject? Is the plane still flying? Is the engine still working? And with a bird strike, in that instance, I think maybe it could have landed. Okay, maybe. I'm saying didn't. But again, the pilot did everything in accordance with the checklist, which is ideally what you're required to do. And under those stressful situations, do you really have the mental capacity to go against the checklist, right? I'm going to go against the checklist here because I'm pretty sure that this plane can keep flying. I think it takes a certain level of experience and a certain pilot that can do that in those instances. But the jets will fly afterwards. Interesting. Okay, different video from what I normally make. Hope you guys like it. If you do, please smash the like button and share this video. Subscribe to get future notifications of my content. And then you can always get additional exclusive access behind the scenes and ad-free content at patreon.com/Chris Lehto. Or you can be a YouTube member here. Thanks again. Have a great day. Peace.